had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games. The WNBA's regular season schedule announced Wednesday, including 19 games moved to different arenas, up from 15.
9 games dropped to just 4. This isn't a coincidence. Last season, the Indiana Fever had 9 road games shifted to larger NBA arenas to handle huge crowds for Caitlin Clark. This year, only 4 games. Meanwhile, the league actually increased total arena moves from 15 to 19. So if demand is supposedly at an all-time high, why are fewer Fever games getting the big stage treatment?
The Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, and Atlanta Dream each moved 1 game against Indiana last year, but none for the upcoming season. The New York Liberty, Portland Fire, Mercury, Valkyries, and Minnesota Lynx are already in NBA arenas, removing any need to move games for bigger crowds. Is part of this due to injuries? Well, they would like you to believe that, I think. They would like you to believe, oh, well, she got injured last year. We don't want to move. We don't want to commit to a bigger arena. God forbid she gets.
This is where the official explanation starts to crumble. Teams want you to think it's about injury risk. Caitlin missed most of last season after that groin injury at TD Garden on July 15th, so they claim they're cautious about booking larger venues. Sounds reasonable until you check the numbers. Even after she announced she wouldn't return, those shifted games still sold out. Last season, the Fever averaged 15,884 fans at road games, 4,000 more than any other team, even though Clark only played in 3 of the 9 games that were moved before her injury.
You have names like Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Names like Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson, the same person who threw a fit that Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine's Woman Athlete of the Year. And she said, why give it to Caitlin Clark? Let's give it to the whole entire league. If you ask me, this is a subtle play from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery. Because at the end of the season, they decreased the amount of Fever games that have been moved to bigger arenas. Yet in totality, they increased the league from 15 games to 19 games.
Let's break down who's calling these shots. Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream, and Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Remember Sheila Johnson? She publicly criticized Time magazine for naming Caitlin Clark Athlete of the Year, saying the entire league should have been honored instead. Last season, the Dream moved 1 game against Indiana to State Farm Arena. This year, 0. The Mystics moved 1 game last year. This year, 0. The Connecticut Sun even moved a game to TD Garden where Clark got injured. This season, nothing scheduled.
4 times this season. You see how massive the season was? You see how much of a success it was this year? And we only had Caitlin Clark. See, we don't really need her. I told you guys we were going to do this without her. Interesting. The decrease in moved Fever games comes after Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games last season. Clark appeared in just 3 of the 9 moved road games, including July 15th against the Connecticut Sun at TD Garden. Clark injured her groin in the 4th quarter of that game and missed the remainder of the season. The Fever remained the league's biggest attendance draw last year, averaging 15,884 fans for their...
But here's what really exposes the strategy. Last season, the Chicago Sky and Dallas Wings each had 2 games moved to larger arenas. This year, just 1 each. Meanwhile, Toronto's expansion team has 5 games shifted to different venues, including 2 apiece in Montreal and Vancouver. The league clearly isn't shy about moving games to reach bigger crowds and tap new markets. They're just intentionally limiting how many of those games feature the Fever. The numbers say it all. Total moved games up from 15 to 19, but Fever games in those arenas dropped from 9 to 4. This isn't about injury risks or scheduling conflicts.
Front off sports. But teams could still change course before the WNBA regular season starts. I think that is likely. It's easier to say, oh, we're gonna show everybody that we know this league is good with or without Caitlin Clark. We're gonna prove it. But once you talk to your owner buddies and they say, "Look how much we made." I mean, Indiana Fever came to town. Look how much we're making, right? Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, talk to the owner of the Chicago Sky, and they say, "Hey, how much? What was that gate looking like? Oh, damn, that's a lot of money."
Let's examine the 4 Fever games that were scheduled: July 5th versus Vegas, August 8th versus Chicago Sky, August 18th versus Toronto, and August 20th versus Dallas. Notice a pattern? They're all late in the season, after the initial media buzz has faded. Last year, the league booked 9 Fever games in NBA arenas right from the start, riding the peak of Caitlin Clark hype. This year, they're gambling on generating early season interest without her, then strategically placing the big arena games later. There's another layer nobody is mentioning. The collective bargaining agreement still isn't finalized. The 2026 season could realistically be delayed. From an NBA arena management perspective, why lock in WNBA dates when the season might not even start? Better to keep dates open for guaranteed sellouts. Jonas Brothers, Taylor Swift, Luke Bryan, and only slot in Fever games later if needed.
Season against the Fever. The 2025 schedule was released 2 months earlier. The Dream announced in March that their game on May 22nd against Indiana would be moved to the State Farm home arena, home of the NBA's Hawks. The Wings announced a week later that they moved a game against the Fever to American Airlines Arena. A Dream spokesperson tells Front Office Sports that they are always exploring new opportunities. The 2026 WNBA season remains in jeopardy of not starting on time, as the league and its union have yet to come to terms on a new collective.
They're leaving on the table rewrite this. Here's a polished rewrite. In February 2025, the Chicago Sky announced they were moving their first 2 games against the Fever to the United Center, even though the full schedule had been released 2 months earlier, in December. In March, the Atlanta Dream moved their May 22nd matchup with Indiana to State Farm Arena, home of the Hawks. A week later, the Dallas Wings followed suit, relocating a Fever game to the American Airlines Center. All of these changes came months after the original schedule was announced. A Fever spokesperson told Front Office Sports they couldn't comment on potential future venue changes by other teams, but cautioned that plans could still shift before the season begins. Translation: expect more announcements like these as tip-off approaches and teams realize just how much revenue they might be leaving on the table.
That there's no CBA deal reached. If I'm an owner of an NBA arena, if I'm in charge of selecting what events gets put in these arenas, well, without a CBA deal reached, why would I want to start already Xing out dates with potential WNBA games when I can keep those dates open for when a Jonas Brothers come to town, when a Taylor Swift comes to town, when a Luke Bryan or whoever come to town? Why would I start Xing out these dates? I wouldn't. It's not smart. I want to keep those dates open as long as I possibly.
Consider the position this puts certain ownership groups in. On one side, you have people like Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson, who've long emphasized that the league's success shouldn't hinge on a single player. They've championed the idea that the WNBA was destined to grow, and Caitlin Clark just happened to arrive as momentum was already building. For them, it's about pride, legacy, and not reducing the league's story to one individual's impact. But then you look at owners of teams like the Las Vegas Aces or the Chicago Sky, and the numbers tell a different story. When the Fever came to town last season, the revenue spike was undeniable. Moving a game from a 7,000-seat arena to a 20,000-seat NBA venue and selling it out isn't just a small boost. It's transformative money for franchises that have operated in the red for years.
Those dates open for possible bigger events. And if nobody takes those dates, fine. Then we'll slide a couple Indiana Fever games in here. But until then, we're keeping these dates open. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all the support. Like the video. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel. That would mean so much to me. See you next time. And as always, take it easy.